Hello. My name is Bryan, and I'm freaking out. I'm a tad discombobulated. I'm a wee bit uncertain. I'm feeling a kind of instability in the air, I am. And you want to know why? Because we're living through actual historical change. And I posit that everyone in the room feels somewhat similarly. Something's going on. It's political, it's economic, it's tech. It's the tech today and what we're going to be tomorrow. It's political actors determining what our actual material life is going to be like, literally. People making choices that's going to affect all of us, right? And that includes the technology, but it also includes the current administration. It includes rupture, it includes movement, and it includes what happens to us. And I just recently discovered the human soul. Right? People can talk about the soul, people can think about it, write about it, read poems, but I actually discovered it, so I'd like to share that process of discovery with you. And look at that, I mean, the condition of existence is what I'm interested in. The actual creation of being. What does it mean to be in a world as a sentient, existing essence? And I'm wondering, who decides? Who owns our movement through space and time? Who determines what you do with your day, with your hour, with your thoughts? That's where I want to come in. I want to know who owns us. I want to know who tells us what to do. I want to know who makes us go to work. I want to know who came up with the 9 to 5. I want to know who came up with the wage system. And I'm thinking about things like, well, there it is. Who determines being? What I think's happening, and this is a historical thing, I think we've left the 20th century behind. I think it's finally and absolutely over. I think we're creating new norms, new systems of normative behavior and understanding. What we used to think is now being challenged, and head on, and even vigorously, I'm going to say revolutionary. And recently, I was just minding my own business, and I picked up the current issue of The Economist. Now, for The Economist, for me, is staid. It's pragmatic. It's British. It's the voice of empire. It really is. It's free enterprise right up the middle, and it never engages in sort of high-end emotional rhetoric. I look to The Economist sometimes for sanity. Like, what's really going on? Tell me, please, United Kingdom. And then I read the article, and it used that verb in its title. I've never seen The Economist come with such energy. I've never seen the word smash. I've never seen the phrase European nightmare. So maybe Europe is feeling something because, well, we're doing something, the US of A, and maybe that the 20th century has moved into new terrain. Perhaps we are engaging in the end. And now the 20th century, you could say, come on, man, that ended in 2000, right? You go 1999, let's party till it's 1999, and then 2000, or it could be 9/11. Some people think that after 9/11, when the planes fly into the Twin Towers and drop them, that's the end. The end of irony, the end of comedy, the end of anything humorous, and we're done. Some have articulated that it's the 2008 financial crisis. That's it. That's the end of capitalism as we know it. Some think it's the 2016 election or the 2020 election. Some think it's when Brexit happened. Of course, UK is looking at Europe and going, we're out. We're going to define a new terrain. We're going to become something different. We're going to hold on to our kingdom and our separation, our pound and not our euro. And I wonder how this all fits together. I wonder what we're doing. Say goodbye. And I think, you know what? There's one indication is when one of the world's foremost democracies denies elections. For me, that's a red flag. When you start to deny an outcome of a process that we do as a community, then I think, oh, something's going on. I smell change in the air. We are now living that change. And I would posit that the social media angst that we're feeling, the so-called division in the United States, our sort of separation between left and right and red and blue, Democrat, Republican, and up and down, black and white, boy, girl, man, woman, trans, and everything else, I think those arguments exist because we are defining the terms of our new reality. We are arguing about what the 21st century is going to be. We're stumbling through space and time, praying that we can articulate what this will look like. It's new kinds of norms, new kinds of concepts of what's natural and real, and of course, where a historian comes in. History is the study of the process of materialization, where we become. It's being, actually. It's the world as we know it. As Bryant University used to not exist, and now it does exist. It's also like DEI, no DEI, belonging, actually no, do not mention the word belonging. Certainly don't mention the word climate change, don't use the word climate science. Yes, climate science, no climate science. Yes, DEI, no DEI, and I want to know where we fit in. What are we going to do? What is material reality, and who owns that process, and who tells us what to do? And I'd like to start with another piece of technology, the very first object that humanity tossed up into orbit. It's a great event. At the time, though, they weren't considering it as a human moment. It was a Soviet Union. It was the Cold War. It was the space race. It was USA and USSR. It was my system is better than your system. I know how to put bread on the grocery shelves. You don't know how to put bread on the grocery shelves. It's an argument over raising babies. We're willing to nuke ourselves rather than compromise on our political economic reality, right? For me, that's an interesting Cold War relic. And now look at us. Look at how many satellites we have in orbit. Look at SpaceX tossing things up from the private field. What happened to NASA? What's the combination of the two? I like to push those antagonisms aside for a second and think about what philosophers said when that first happened. The actual Hannah Arendt, when she saw that, or Martin Heidegger, when he saw that. They were bugging. They were bugging like I'm bugging. They're going, what does this mean? It must mean something, right? It's not that it can spy on Americans. It's not that they're going to be able to shoot a missile from that little thing on Americans, but it does mean something else. And I think we should all pause a moment and really use our philosophical brains and try to interpret what that means. It really does mean we mutate, we transmogrify, we transition from nature, I should have put a capital N, just think that, nature, planet before human, right? Into a kind of like natural resource. How do you go from nature to natural resource? How do you go to commodity? How do you separate ourselves from our natural existence and become something else? Well, for me, this is the #1 go-to model. Everyone in this room for sure can agree that water existed before humans. Let's just go there. That it's a natural thing, that it existed before we tinkered with it, before we removed it from the environment, before we put it into plastic bottles. I'm not even going to mention the word plastic again, although I could go off on that. And water as natural, but now it's a commodity. Now we buy and sell units of it, and we need water to live, do we not? And I think I'm not being that smart when I say, look, if we need water to live, then that to me indicates that we have privatized life itself. We have privatized embryo to death. We have privatized species, subject, person, and the totality. Now our life processes are removed from nature and we become privatized. And I think of other technologies, especially the original railroad. The original railroad for me is the machine into the garden. Literally, it's a violation of nature on many levels. Although innovation is cool, new technology is cool, I would rather get on a train and walk. I would rather get on a train and carry my stuff to California than ride in a horse and buggy. And so I think there's a line between when the technology is awesome, and that's perhaps why we adopt it, but then there's something that it also indicates. For me, the machine enters Eden, and we now have a new conversation about it. Now we begin to reorganize what it means to be movement, or an immigrant, or work, or who built the railroad, and even the squeezing of time and space, literally, space of continent, time itself, move it and we squeeze it, and we begin to move faster and faster. The human being is in motion. The planet is in motion, and the sun sits there looking down on us and going, what is up? And I think one of the great abstractions that I use all the time, and my students are probably sick of this slide, but if you look at this, the time zones that we know and love, Eastern Standard Time, Pacific Standard Time up there in the Pacific Northwest, that was made up, dudes, by the robber barons, the sort of like the first elemental leaders of the Gilded Age. And I think that's cool to think that. There was no congressional argument about it. There was no congressional approval, and there certainly wasn't a vote about whether or not we would be okay with this. We just do it. We jump into it, and we become something new, and we never really pause to think what that might mean for us, for our minds, for our bodies, and our spirit. This thing is one of the first steam engines. And I really think it's awesome. We are masters of fire, are we not? If we're talking about technology, one thing you could say is we figured out to start fires and control fires and really burn fires. And before you know it, you have the combustion engine flying around. And you can compress, you can boil water with various technologies, say coal. And then you can run this thing and get the thing moving. And we can actually activate motion like we've never been able to do before. And again, I like to say, now look at us. And the thing I want you to think about, though, is just ponder the body. What does it do to us? What does it do to like our sentience, our ability? What makes a ruler? What makes a king? What makes a CEO? And what makes a worker? What makes a slave? Like, are we not all here equal? Do we not all have a say about our day, or about our life, about our hour? I would say so, but also ponder the mind. Look at those poor suckers. You're not doing that if you have bread on the table. You're not doing that if you have money in the bank, right? Unless maybe for a day you might think it's cool, or maybe you're going to look for gold. I don't know. But all I want you guys to do is just check out the body in the structure, right? Sentience and materialized reality. The workers did not invent the mind, right? The owners bring their money together, take the risk, build the material, extract the stuff, and then we burn it, and then we move. And I'm always going, well, what does it all mean? And I have to bring you locally to the Slater Mill, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, right here, the so-called birthplace of capitalism. Straight up, in this continent, the first place where we actually offered a wage and commanded hydropower to create textiles, right? And imagine being on a farm where your daily rhythms with the sun, the seasons, where you did your farm jobs. But then imagine taking yourself from the farm, waving goodbye basically to the past, centuries past, and saying hello to the new paradigm. And the new paradigm is work for money. And it's just one little mill, and I like that mill. And it's also a national monument. It's a national park, although maybe not anymore. But we do think that that Slater Mill changed the world, and it changed the world everywhere. Our Manchester, England, Liverpool, then Lowell Mills, etc., Springfield, Holyoke. This is the Industrial Revolution. This is where we went from the land into this space where we create our new reality and make our money. And then we have to buy our goods. And I just want you to stare, ponder, look at the young woman in the shot. There it is again, body in a sort of new context, body in a new stipulation, body within a new paradigm. Do you think she's there on her own, under her own will? What is she thinking about? What is she doing there? And then, of course, we have to come up with laws that we disallow child labor. These things are all in play. And I want to go really fast from the original sort of textile mills into one of the greatest inventions, one of the greatest creations of all time. This is River Rouge, Ford Motor Company, Detroit, Michigan. This is the pumping engine of the 20th century, the automobile, right? And look how awesome it looks for me. For me, it's like, well, it's a circuit board, really. Just stare at that for a second. I'm tripping. I don't know about you. Like how to what does that say? How to go from ore to auto in 28 hours, right? And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again for sure. I have to. I just love that. In fact, I'm going to do this the rest of the talk. I mean, even look at the silos. There's actually, like, I don't even know what those things are, but for me, it's a city. It's the streets. It's highway development. It's the culmination of everything. And it also indicates to me that technology, we should pause for a moment and actually ask ourselves, what has science done for us? I'm okay with science. I am. I mean, I've been saved. My life has been saved because of science. I get it. But are we really okay with just stumbling through space and time and saying, yes, I adopt this new technology. Yes, I'm down with that. The war machine, that's World War I, 40 million dead. And over the 20th century, 200 million dead. Okay, now what does that mean, like body count? Just big piles of humans' bodies because we can't figure out what to do with one another? We live our context under a nation, right, a flag. I pledge allegiance, and then kaboom. This is my favorite. This, for me, is iconic. This is who we are. It expresses our fear. It expresses our hope. It expresses our unwillingness to deal with another side. It expresses, new terrain, let us say. And certainly, it allows the United States to phenomenally and fundamentally determine, there it is, the word again, what the 20th century is going to look like. And we go from the big kaboom to the baby boom, where families come into these houses and new networks of reality and highways leaving the cities and the Federal Highway Act building roads that allow us to move even faster and come into these cities. But these are dreams too, don't forget. Real life happens here in these homes. Real life gives birth to children who might one day drive dope cars. And I like to think about the automobile, of course, and I could do the whole talk on the automobile. In fact, I was hoping I could do an hour and a half just on the automobile because it is everything for the 20th century. It really is. And I would love to talk on, I'll just do see if I can come up with 7. Crosswalks, parking garages, combustion engine, petroleum, Saudi Arabia, the ozone layer. What is the car? I know. Necking in the back seat at a drive-in movie theater. All right, this is the world. And then I think about myself, a sort of autobiographical traipse through time. I was so down when we could graduate from the AM radio into something else, right? This is just me listening to music. Peace out, right? Pumping the tunes, and I love the tunes, and I go over the 8-track take to the phonograph. I still have my boxes of LPs, and I go through them, and sometimes I'll go to vintage vinyl to go see what kind of records I can come up with. And I would always tape my records for the cassettes. And then arrives the apotheosis of my life. There's no question. The Walkman, right? This becomes who I am. And I was set. I wanted it all to end. Enough with your technological intervention. I'm set. Can I just chill here for a second and listen to some music? But oh no, we have to keep going. Somebody, go, Bryan, go. You're going to start listening to CDs. And I needed to go from my Sony Walkman for the cassette into the Discman. And now I'm pumping the disc and I can do these things. And we arrive where we are now, ultimately. And I look at the words. I mean, for me, this is Neanderthal technology, right? The hardware. This is an 8-track. So you know where we're going from this? I think you all know where we're going from this. We're going to the next step. I'm already there. Perhaps some of you are already there too. Maybe we can talk. We can have a neural. You already have a brain implant. I know it because we're connecting. And we go. This is where I jam my jams. Okay. I'm actually have a voice in my head demanding what comes out of my mouth. I'm already linked in. But arrive again the philosophers. The philosophers go, you just can't go there, dude. You cannot go from brain chip to Starlink. What if they connect the two? What if they connect the brain to the satellite? What if we create a sort of superorganism, a sort of cosmological reality, a newness? We are one, finally, but did we know we were going to go there? And before we celebrate becoming cyborgs, this is 2001, this is Hal. This is Hal who determined that the human being was a threat to the enterprise and so eradicated the human from the enterprise. And it makes sense to me. We then come up with robots. Will the robots master us? Will we be slaves to our creation is really what the big fear is. But what if we're not? What if we never actually become slaves, but we just become slaves to the thing we created, the sort of edifice, the entity, the material reality of our proposition? Who do we become? And I turn to, among many, James Cameron, artist, filmmaker, and he's worried about this too. This is this year. He's like, yo, you didn't sign up for this. Did you agree for it? And you certainly didn't vote for it. And who gives, the masters of the apparatus to say what is right and wrong for us? And you land, of course, upon the cyborg, the scary dude. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's seen better days. I'm coming through it. And I then arrive at the point, well, what is the point? Who are we? And what are we doing, right? What's the biological reality? It's like singularity of my subjectivity in the man, my subjectivity in the machine, my subjectivity in the nation state. And it goes from this kind of it's a great photograph to even more. And I think, man, you know what? We got to land where we got to land. We need to develop and understand a proper balance. We should try to articulate what the human soul is. And here's how you know what the human soul is. You read 200 student papers written by ChatGPT, and you begin to know what the soul is. The soul is what doesn't exist in the robot writing, right? The machine does not bleed. The machine does not suffer. The robot does not fall in love. The robot does not die. And think about us. We have this problem with mortality, and I honestly believe that we should endeavor to arrive at a proper balance with one another, to have an honesty with one another, an honesty with our environment, right? And an honesty with the other, those people we don't quite know, an honesty with other nation states, and arrive upon what I would say is our true expression, right? An embeddedness in the organic and holding on to the thing that makes us human. Thank you very much.